Our task is to learn to listen to this other self that lives within us and with the one we will share the rest of our lives with. This is why we can become on our best friend or our worst enemy. Welcome to another chapter of Clichés Reinvented, reinventing life's clichés, a space where I'm going to share information, thoughts, and insights to help us both live a life in consciousness. These are reflections that have helped me with my personal growth and to live happier and more conscious. This is why now I want to share them with you. I want to thank you for being here today and taking the time to listen to this podcast while you're walking, you're going in your car, walking your dog on your way to work, to study, cooking, whatever you're doing. Thank you for deciding to be here with me and with yourself. Learning to hear our inner voice. Listen to your inner voice, a phrase that many of us have heard, that we have possibly read in motivational or inspirational phrases. Perhaps someone has told us to listen to our inner voice. However, many of us just ignore it, or we have never dedicated the time to listen to it, or we have not given it the importance it deserves. Just as there may be some of us who do not feel anything, do not hear anything, and who do not even know what the inner voice is, there may be others who are certain that there is something inside us, but we just decide to ignore it, to act as if it was nothing. It is like, well, whatever. I will continue living my life like this. It is what it is, and there's nothing to do. The first thing we must do is think and reflect. Yeah, reflect. If our life is in harmony, if we are living in well being, if the answer is yes, it is because you have learned to listen to yourself. You have learned to know and understand yourself. It's worth noting that these are three things that we never finish doing. In the event that our situation is quite the opposite, chill. Just chill, because nobody is born learned. And relating and learning to listen much better to our inner voice is something that doesn't happen overnight. For those who think or feel that the inner voice does not exist or they have never felt it or anything, well, I hope you take it in the best way. You take this in the best way, but it has always been there. Only that you have overlooked it. The inner voice of each person is the name that has been given to this intuition and this self-talk of each person. This voice that is within us, this that comes from the deepest part of us, is like our other me, our other I. It has never happened to you that you talk to yourself or you start to think something, but at the same time you think something else that contradicts what you just thought. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but for me it happens that I'm thinking something, but at the same time I'm like, no, Carol, like that's wrong. Like there's this other thing, and you weren't right. So it's like this internal dialogue, our inner voice, and it are these thoughts that we do not control, that only come up to our mind. It is that little thing that tells you to do this or that, or it tells you this does not looks good, or it encourages you to take action. Each person in this world has their own inner voice. We're all like two in one. And our task is to learn to listen to this other self that lives within us and with whom we will share the rest of our lives. This is why we are our best friend or our worst enemy. The process of listening to your inner voice is like a roller coaster, just like our emotions. There are times when it intensifies. When we listen to it, we feel how it calls our attention. This can happen in different circumstances, as well as to show us that something is going very well or that something is not going the right way, or that we are not good as we think we are. It take it to take action to, etc. It's just present in so many circumstances. The fact is that it does intensify in certain periods of time. However, in the same way, there are periods of time in which this voice quiets down a little bit. It remains like low, as if we couldn't hear it, but it is always, always there. Two things can happen with the inner voice. One, that it can be silent or just a little bit quiet for certain periods, or in the other case, that it can take complete control over our lives. What do I mean? Our voice can be silenced by simple nature, which is actually normal. We may not be 24/7 thinking only about what we are thinking or talking to ourselves, because we have different things and issues to which we need to dedicate time and attention. It is normal. We have to relate ourselves with the world, with others. So we won't be thinking the whole time in our head, thinking about what we are thinking. But on the other hand, and this is quite a problem, it may be that for reasons of life, because of social isolation, or that we spend a lot of time alone with no human or external interactions, that we start to overthink everything. Our inner voice becomes such a, we could say, a torture, since it may not leave us in peace. This is why the importance of learning to listen to ourselves, identify how we are feeling, and achieve the balance between what we are experiencing outside with the world and how we are living and dealing with our inner world. Many times we decide not to listen to ourselves. We decide to ignore our inner voice, or in other words, ignore ourselves. Many of us do not realize this, and unconsciously we are creating a problem in our own life, in our development and personal growth as human beings, and causing certain type of discomfort that we may not even notice at first, but in the end it ends up coming out and manifesting itself, perhaps not in the best way. It happens that many times we know very well what we are feeling and what we are thinking about, but due to external circumstances, due to fears, due to insecurities, due to injuries, we decide to avoid ourselves and shut up. We decide to ignore what is going through our mind. This can happen in a relationship with a person when you know that things are not right, you know that you do not feel completely okay, that it is causing you harm, but because of fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, of the relationship ending, we stay there, ignoring how we are feeling, and instead of looking for a way to express our discomforts or emotions and reveal our true feelings, what ends up happening is that we explode. The fight comes, the discussions, and everything comes back and repeats itself. I don't know if this story sounds familiar to you. Just as in relationships, it can happen at any time in our life with any situation that we know that, I don't know, it can be any situation when we know that things are not right, but because of our fear of confronting our emotions, we decide to quiet ourselves and just keep on there. Keep on this cycle that will never end until we put a stop on it. It can also happen in situations where we are exposed to doing things that we know are not good for us, or that deep inside we do not want to do but end up doing. This can be literally any situation. Some examples that are smoking, taking drugs, drinking. It can also be being with people with whom in reality we don't have a good time, but we are there because, yes, it is what it is. In other words, we put ourselves in situations that we know deep inside that we don't like, that they don't do us any good, that we don't really enjoy. It also happens in those situations in which apparently everything is fine, but there is something within us that is not totally convinced. That feels that there is something that does not quite fit. These types of signals, these intuitions, are the ones that we should listen to. It also happens with people, as if there is something that doesn't fit us with someone. We must listen to this and not ignore it. Do not act like it's nothing, because it is definitely something. We should start to trust ourselves. This little voice knows exactly what it is best for us. The things that we enjoy and makes us feel good, each one very well knows what they are, and each one very well knows with which we do not feel completely comfortable, despite the fact that we do not tell anyone. As long as we know what they are, it is more than enough. Unfortunately, if we have grown up in a society or an environment where we have grown believing that our actions depend on what is outside, on what others say, on what looks good or bad to society, on what I had to do, but it's not what I wanted, instead of what I really want to do, then there is a very little chance that we will listen to our inner voice. It can happen, and I don't want to generalize, but it happens that from a young age we are taught to do things for the other or for others without first thinking about ourselves, about how we are feeling. For example, at school, academic performance is prioritized without taking into account the personal development of the student, how the child, the kid, the student is feeling, if that is what he really wants, if he's feeling okay. And I'm not saying that you cannot think on others or that a good academic performance is not important. Of course not. But all this must go hand in hand with the well-being of each individual in how I am feeling. Because if you do everything for others, well, your actions are very beautiful and the world thanks you. Everyone thanks you. But where are you in your own story? Where are your feelings? Does how you're truly feeling doesn't matters? These are things that we must evaluate and reflect on. It is important to understand that listening to ourselves and giving a little more priority to our inner voice is not a selfish act. It's an act of love with ourselves and with the world. Because that is how we become better people, we become better individuals. By listening more to your inner self, I don't mean to leave everything behind. And now I'm going to do what I've always wanted and I don't give a shit about those around me or what's going on in my life. No, this is not the point. Your inner voice is a tool very powerful that can give us wings, but at the same time, if it is not interpreted in the correct way or understood in the correct way, it can lead us down the not very beneficial path. We could say we must learn to listen to it. It is important that by listening to her and knowing more about what we want to do, no harm is done to anyone. Because, dear ones, everything we give, we're going to receive. So if we go through life thinking only on what is best for ourselves and causing damage to others, we will not have truly positive results in our lives. Sometimes it can be difficult to do what we want or what we like all the time, and even more when we don't even know what is that. We don't even know what is that we want. This is the biggest problem, or rather, the biggest call for attention to the fact that there is something missing in our lives. When we do not know what we want from life, what we like, where we want to go, or how we just want to live, our life will continue without purpose and full of conformity. Our inner voice is everything. It is a tool that if we learn to use it in the best way, it will guide us through life. The inner voice manifests itself in different ways and for different purposes, as we just explained. To know and discover what we really want to do, what we really like, also to know if we are feeling really happy in any situation or if there is something that is not quite working. It is like the the deep inside of us. We know that we need something more, that we want something else, but at the same time we ignore it and continue living the same without listening to ourselves, nor making the changes that we know deep inside us we need and that we must take. I invite you to listen to yourself today. Stop ignoring what you're feeling deep inside, what your inner voice is telling you, because deep down it is you, is yourself, is your pure soul that is speaking to you. Try it and write down how you feel, or just notice how you're feeling. And don't hesitate to share your results. Share with me, share your thoughts, your reflections. Don't forget to follow Clichés Reinvented on Instagram, clichés underscore re underscore invented, where I will share more insights, more reflections, more quotes, more everything to spread more consciousness in this world. That is what we most need. Leave a like, leave your review if you liked it. If not, whatever crossed your mind. Thank you for arriving to the end of this episode. Bye.